Welcome to Fire Talk. This is going to be a talk about addressing the darkness. You know, that stuff that gets up in here when you feel threatened or when you feel like there may not be enough resources at the grocery store, or that it's going to be too crowded and somebody from out of state might be all aggressive. You have all these stories in your head. It's that stuff that comes up with those stories. We had a class we were working on called Taming the Werewolf, but the werewolf really can't be tamed. The problem is if you shut it down all the time, it starts to become explosive. And if you let it out too much, well, you're going to burn a lot of bridges, and it takes 2 or 3 times longer to rebuild those. So working on your own darkness, your own werewolf in these trying times, it's going to prevent a lot of pain and grief. It's going to increase your efficiencies, and it's going to make you less noticed by people who may or may not have personal investment in whatever for your at your expense. I don't know how to say it nicely, but there are fractures beginning to show in some places globally due to the economic effects of this pandemic. Money's not coming in. It's also being redistributed. Resources aren't as available. We have a lot of issues going on in our mainstream media that oversell a storyline of panic and lack. But there are some managing techniques we can employ to pick ourselves up off that dark abyss and get moving again. So let's address each one. The first one is the most primal and probably the most efficient yet callous piece of our psyche, and that's that reptilian brain, the primal self. It's that mother bear, protect the cub, all or nothing that we all possess. And some of us are gifted. We could feel it slowly rising, and we manage our behaviors and remove ourselves from the situation. Others, it's a fiery hot temper, and then remorse, guilt, horror of what have I just initiated happens a little too soon, and the person's involved in that it's a dialogue, it's a discourse of violence. They're starting fresh, new, and enraged, righteously so, because you made an ass out of yourself. So these things happen, and we're in this transitory state where we're getting more and more thoughts of the possibility of a Mad Max scenario, and less warm and fuzzies around the Mary Poppins scenario, because that shadow self, that darkness, whispers in our ear, you're delusional, you're in denial, you're playing it safe, your faith in humanity is going to be the better of you. There's this haunting voice that's attached to every one of those stories of, I'm not going to say hope, because hope is hollow. Those stories of productive follow-through based on an action plan manifesting in your daily life as how you invest your time and calories, your action list. So how do we combat that without sacrificing our situational and actual awareness of things? Well, back to those analogies of learning about rattlesnakes and the mosquitoes and the seasons that things that can harm you come to fruition. If there's any poisonous lookalikes to the plants you're foraging for, do they grow around you? And now societal history lessons from when things like this have happened in the past. And they have, over and over again. If you're looking for a solution from government, congratulations, welcome to being part of the problem. Because government historically has fallen short of providing solutions for individuals in crises. Refer to Hurricane Katrina, any of the hurricanes from Louisiana down to up through New Jersey. Refer to 9/11, refer to the ice storm of 98. In many cases, it was over a week before government response came, and when it did come, it was one size fits all. That's the nature of government. It's a massive blunt force instrument, and that's not political, that's observational. Now, if you rely on yourself, that's a great first start, and it seems a little overwhelming, but that's why, as an individual, you make some productive choices around building relationships, a nexus of support, like a net that helps each other, people you can count on. And if you haven't invested your day-to-day life and in cultivating those relationships. What have you been doing? That's okay. Can't change it now. But you know what? What a great excuse to start manifesting new behaviors, new neural pathways, new habits, where you start to respect your neighbor and you find ways that you can build exchange in a manner that's easy to understand and easy to maintain, so you develop trust. And so these are the pieces that will help to combat that shadow self, which manifests primarily in fear. That's the most destructive and quick way to get into conflict, right? What's the antithesis of fear? Knowledge, understanding, awareness. Okay, so working on knowledge, do your history, learn about how systems degrade in societies and what are the symptoms, what is the sequencing of those symptoms. Look at the current landscape. This is where your awareness comes in. Are there fights yet at the grocery stores? Here, the police are making a very discreet presence and noting the traffic patterns going in and out of the grocery stores and the few stores that are open, because we are now under some sort of limited quarantine, and part of its component is to have essential businesses only open. Now these hotspots of population gathering are being monitored by law enforcement. This is unthinkable in a normal baseline United States of America. There's the other aspect. Now the shadow self comes and whispers conspiracy theories. Yeah, government's nature is to gain more power. We know that through history. An individual's nature is to maintain self-reliance. We know that through history. But the bell curve seems to be that people are looking around and they're getting suspicious of things. All right? And that's where doubt, that shadow whisper of doubt, comes in. So what's the antithesis of doubt? Be secure in what you have and what you know. How is your life-sustaining system maintenance going for today? And what do you need to do tomorrow to keep it at least 2 weeks ahead with shelter, water, fire, and food? As resources come in, are you funneling them to those primary life-sustaining systems? Ancillary might be to have a nest of resources, whether it's cash or some things to barter with, as well as making sure your systems are redundant and ahead. Water's a big one. When you lose power, not to say that we're going to, but in the historical sequencing of events, that's one of the things that happens. Do you have a means of boiling water, enough water, to get you and yours through each day? How about each week or month? What would the routine look like if you had to? It's almost as if, when you track it, all of those shadow voices can be addressed by rolling up your sleeves, coming up with a solution, and then working on it. There's an old saying, an idle mind is the devil's playground. If you're engaged in improving your condition, the shadows go away. And then the final and most powerful piece, I was just talking to a friend in Texas about this one, is identify every day what you're thankful for in your life. What are you doing this for? Because if you don't have that passion to drive you, the love of your children or your family or fill in the blank, whatever it is that gets you out of bed, if you don't have that as your engine, your drive, you're going to get discouraged a lot easier than those who do. This is a golden opportunity. And if you stand fast on that premise, this is a golden opportunity with all of this time with loved ones to get things done. Well, then you'll get things done, won't you? And those shadows will haunt you every day. They'll whisper in your ear, but you won't fall off your path, your bearing. You will not lose your bearing. Well, stand fast. Can't wait to hear some of your stories on the other side of this. Might have worked myself out of a job now that we're all in a quasi-survival light situation together. We're all learning the same skills. Glad to have you aboard. See you on the trail.